I guess we will see. Well, speaking of we will see, and as this continues to evolve, one of our favorite companies to talk about, SAP, they they did sort of an interesting thing, and I don't know that I'm going to be too hard on this because I think this is it's a very valid challenge, and I think we're going to see a lot of this sorting out. We talked about this, I think, a week or two ago. I don't even
Mhm.
remember, but we were quoting the fact that anybody says they've got the price. I think we were talking about Salesforce at the time. Anyone who has the pricing for AI worked out is lying. And I think we're seeing that, right? AI is incredibly difficult across every dimension, figuring out the use cases, figuring out usage, the consumption costs are high. We don't have the same benefits of scale that we did with the cloud. In fact, it can grow, not go the other way. So you have all these factors. And so organizations are rightfully trying to sort it out, and they're trying to balance between the effort to drive adoption while managing against the sort of, wanting to control for the unknowns. So anyway, with all of that as sort of background, SAP has introduced I guess a rebranding is the best way to say this, of one of their offerings. And there's a bunch of different moving parts to it. I mean, SAP's pricing schemas are always extremely complex, and it's always very difficult to get your head around. And like most of their major competitors like this, like we talked about Broadcom, lots of bundling going on where they're packaging up a bunch of things. So there's all of that. And so I don't want to minimize this, that there's a whole lot of moving parts to this particular rebranded repackaging. But one of the most interesting points is they, for all intents and purposes, pulled out all of their AI components out of these bundles, and basically eliminated the ability to sort of get the all you can eat stuff. And now all the AI pieces, at least as I'm understanding it, are add-ons. Um, and what I'm curious about is that because they were seeing consumption skyrocket? I mean, we have not talked a whole lot about SAP's, huge AI adoption. Um, or if this is preemptive, or I mean, I don't know if you have any insight, but that I found interesting. So I have some opinions about where this is all going from an overall pricing standpoint. But what's your take on this news more broadly?
Yeah, at a broad perspective, for SAP customers, they've been pitched on Rise with SAP for a while as a way to modernize SAP, and now as they are starting to use Rise with SAP as more of a generalized market phrase, they have repackaged SAP accordingly. And as you mentioned, one of the things I did find most interesting was how they are taking out their AI units uh, from the packaging and providing that on a per use basis. And I think this reflects the challenge of pricing for AI. Software companies are tempted to want to provide a bucket where you can get unlimited usage because that's where the market tends to go anyways, as you charge for your $20 a month, $100 a month, whatever. It's not like you meter your Salesforce usage or other SaaS usage. For instance, you just buy your license and use it basically at this point, or your cell phone plan. You basically buy it and you use it for X dollars a month. So that is the temptation. But the problem is the variability of AI usage is still at the point where we're not quite sure how big that bucket is or how to control those usage trends. So now it looks like SAP is going back to the cost plus foundational model, which is kind of what you do when you want to make a profit on something, but you don't know how much anybody's going to use. And of course, the problem there is that you can't predict your bill. Just like once upon a time, we used to all pay 25 cents per minute for long distance calls. And like, how much does it cost to call your mom per month? You don't know because you don't know how long those conversations are going to last. Now we've got the same problem with AI.
Yeah, well, and I do think, like you said, I think it's interesting because in fact, that's what it was in reference to the Salesforce. Because last week or the week before, we talked about the fact that Salesforce went the other direction. They had been usage based and went to a fixed monthly fee for this. And it is because I know when I was on the other side, I spent most of my career on the other side of the table. The thing I hated the most was the unpredictability. And if you look at cloud is interesting. It is right. It sort of reconditioned the world into looking at the world from this idea of consumption. The difference is that those were IT controlled, generally speaking, IT controlled workloads which meant that IT had the ability to sort of control the operating parameters and therefore create a degree of predictability, at least after a certain point, right? Maybe there was a transitionary period where you had to kind of get the workload into production and to see what it was performing, align it to business motions, right? Oh, well, month end close causes these spikes, and we can model it out and you could get a sense. And then the usage worked in your favor as a CIO, because then you had the benefits of elasticity, where you could spin up and have that benefit without having to worry about it, and not pay for more than you wanted. Because what the one part that you didn't say in there is that the way a software company manages that risk of having a all you can eat price is we build that buffer, we build that elasticity into the pricing model, right? So that we cover our downside risk. And so theoretically, a consumption-based model, if modeled properly, is actually cheaper for a consumer, right? But as you love to do with the whole FinOps thing, is those cloud costs became a real issue, because it requires discipline of being able to get that visibility of understanding what those usage models look like, so you can actually create the degree of predictability that you need. And so AI is sort of stuck between between these two worlds, right? It's on the one hand, you have this consumption model of cloud, and on the other hand, a consumption interface, much like a SaaS product, which is like you said, sold typically as an all you can eat. And we're trying to figure out how to bundle those two together and make these live. And it's not a simple equation. And so I think I don't think, this is why I'm not being hard on SAP on this. I think that we're going to see software companies across the board go back and forth to try to figure out both a combination of where the market is going, but also where their customers are and what those use cases are, right? The more predictable the use case, the easier it is well, ironically, the more predictable the use case, the easier it is on both sides. It's easier for the customers to create their own predictability, and it's easier for the software company to do it. So then it's just a question of who's taking the risk. So I think it's a fascinating thing. And I think if I'm a CIO, I'm looking at this as a sign of the times to come, that we're going to see this sort of ping-ponging back and forth a lot.
Yeah, the big paradox about AI is that it's most useful when you're having problem defining the problem. Like it is good at these unknown unknowns that we deal with, but that also means you can't know beforehand how much something is going to cost to solve the problem, because you literally are having trouble defining the challenge in the first place.
Well, and I think we also haven't decided, and again, there's probably not a single answer to this, but we haven't decided if the primary use of AI is to have it be an exponential tool where we stick it in the hands of an employee, and the more they use it, the more productive they get, the better they become. Or are we using AI as a tool that allows us to reduce our workforce, and therefore it has this sort of negative curve on it, right? Where we actually see the usage drop because we in fact have people using it less because it's so much more effective and more powerful to get the job done, relative to everything. And I don't know if there is a single answer. I think we're going to see both. We're going to talk here in a second on our next story about some of the claims that are going about how effective people have been at using AI. But I think we are still very much at this stage where we have more unknowns than we have knowns. And as a result, I think we're going to keep seeing this flip-flopping as companies try to figure it out. And as the buyers try to flip it out, because let's also call a spade a spade. If every buyer said, oh, heck no, you better give me an all you can eat single price, then SAP would never do this, right? So
Right.
This is clearly saying that we have Salesforce going one direction, SAP going the other. These are two giant companies serving effectively the exact same market. And what that tells you is the market is not yet clear on what they want.
So.